And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, with another edition of the Top Dog Talk podcast. I'm your host, Reno. Back alongside me, co-host Dan Kiley. Monday evening here on the East Coast. Dan, it is getting really close to summer. How are you doing, my friend?
I am good, and Mondays suit me. I don't know. I have the energy. I'm not worn out by the weekend. I'm ready to go. It's Monday night. We're here to talk whatever the heck we're going to talk about. We got a lot of different things to talk about tonight. We got a couple hot topics to get into. We have a Dan's rant, and we're going to combo my rant today, and then we're going to talk about the Georgia's off-season conditioning program. You know, this is where champions are made, and then also, is the coaching staff finally safe? Can we put that to bed for the rest of the year? So we got a pretty loaded show, a lot of different things to talk about. Harrison, how was your weekend, bud?
Not a bad weekend. Been busy. Kind of working around the clock. Got some schoolwork I got to finish up. Spring break starts at the end of the week, so trying to get out of here as quickly as possible. But Dan, with that being said, hot topics. Spring training baseball's back, which is nice. Although, heck, I only watched 30 seconds of it, and just because there's clips going around of the Braves game, we'll touch on that later. Hot topics of the week, Dan, we have two. Kind of going, first hot topic goes back to last week. We had a great conversation kind of about the length of college football and how the NCAA is trying to make college football shorter. So with that, Dan, are sports games too long? Shoot.
So, you can take this in a million different ways, right? Some games have a clock. Some games don't have a clock. It's the time in between the clock running that a lot of people have an issue with. In baseball, it seems like they have a problem with it. But who are we really talking about? At the end of the day, I listened to Jonathan Jeremiah's show, and we actually touched on this last week as well. And I can't remember if it was Jonathan or Jeremiah, but one of them was talking about the people who are not complaining about this game being, or any game being too long, are the people who are paying you and showing up at the games. It's like this entire world that we live in now, and you can take it to political or whatever you want to, is like we're catering to the less than 1%. And that is obnoxious and atrocious in my mind. Sports are sports. You either like them or you don't like them. And you're going to have that 1 or 2% that just doesn't watch it anyway because they don't like it. So why are we trying to cater to them? When I go to a baseball game with my friends or my kids, when my kids were little, they were like, yeah, it's too long. Okay. They couldn't sit through anything. So they're out. But like if me and a buddy go to a game, unless we run out of money, we've never complained about the game being too long. I don't know, Harrison, like it's obnoxious to me, and I hate it that all of these people are complaining about these different things. I understand trying to make a game fit into a TV window. That makes sense. There's a lot of money involved. I get all that. The easiest way to control that is to cut down on all the freaking ads you sell. And I think we would all be extremely happy with that. But, baseball is the one sport that doesn't have a clock. And I mean team sport, right? Because, tennis and golf didn't have a clock. But it's just, there are some games that go fast. There are some games that take forever to play. I agree that the ones that take forever and there's no action in the game, those games can be a tad bit boring. But for the most part, baseball has a good pace to it. I've never gone to a game before, baseball, basketball, or otherwise, and thought to myself, gosh, I wish this thing was over. I just never have. So to me, games are not too long, and I enjoy them. And it's a break from reality. It's supposed to be anyway. It's a break from reality where you can just go and watch people compete. So I don't know. What about you, Harrison? Do you feel like games in general are too long?
I don't. Well, okay, here's my take, Dan. And something you touched on, talking about what Jeremiah and Jonathan said last week. And also, Jeremiah had a great quote they put on Twitter that my man Dan hit up a Twitter bot and said, hey, I need a quote of this. And the graphics hilarious. It looks great, just perfect. And here's the thing. I'm not a golf fan. I don't watch golf. I don't play golf. I don't do it. Probably because I'm bad at it, okay? Same thing with tennis. I'm bad at tennis. I don't watch tennis. By no means am I going to sit here and say tennis needs to cater to my liking. I don't care about tennis. I never will like tennis probably. I don't ever watch it. Same thing with golf. Maybe as I'm older, maybe I'll sit down and watch some golf. But right now, I don't watch golf. Okay? So golf, by no means. Please don't feel like you need to cut down your TV time or how long you're on TV. Don't change the game for me. You've been around much longer than I have. You're going to be around much longer than I ever will be. Don't change it for the people who aren't diehards, okay? Don't change it for the people that watch you week to week. Same thing with NASCAR, Formula One. I don't need you to cater to me if I'm not a fan, okay? Now, football, I'm here for football. I will sit all dang Saturday for football games. I really don't care. College football, NFL, I will sit on my couch all Saturday or Sunday and watch it. By no means do I need a game to be cut down. And here's what Jonathan said right here real quick. Sorry, Dan. I find myself wishing that baseball games would last longer when I go to them. Valid point.
On a Saturday, I mean, now obviously these times have changed for me with kids, and when you guys have kids of your own, you'll understand that these days vanish. But like one of my favorite days growing up, well, I say growing up, but like in my early 20s before I had kids, one of my favorite days was a Saturday morning. I would wake up about 9 o'clock, hit college game day, takes me to the noon game. I'd watch whatever the noon game was, all the way to the 3:30 window, watch the SEC game, or whatever the 3:30 window was. Go watch the next one, and like you literally, and I know you, Jeremiah, Jonathan, we've all talked together about this in the past, not recently, but in the past, where you literally lay on the couch from 12 or sometimes a little bit earlier all the way until after midnight. And I know Jonathan, we had a conversation where sometimes you would wake up and realize like, oh crap, I missed the third and fourth quarter of the Oregon game because I fell asleep on the couch. But I mean, it's what I did because I love the sport. I love watching college football. I could watch it all day. NFL, same way. And we really did it a lot this week or this year for the four wide podcast where we had to watch all the different games. So I watched Red Zone from 1 o'clock all the way until our show at 7:30. Jump on the show at 7:30, then immediately get off and watch the Sunday night football. So, I mean, who are they catering to? It's not me. It's not you. It's not Jonathan. It's not Jeremiah. So who are they catering to? It's the 1%. It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And with that being, Dan, hot topic number 2. Who is your favorite, quote unquote, voice of college football, radio or TV? I like this one, Dan. I like this one.
So of all time, my favorite voice of all time of college football was Keith Jackson. And if you don't know who Keith Jackson is, well, here's the funny thing is like with the Whoa Nelly thing, he says he never said it, but it's out there. I know he said it before, but Keith Jackson was the absolute freaking legend. And when I grew up, I knew that if I heard that voice, I knew it was a monster football game because he was the voice. And, and like Al Michaels was like that for any other big event, but for college football, for me, it was always Keith Jackson. Now, I know a lot of people, especially in this area, would tell you Larry Munson is 100% the voice of their generation or whatever. But for me, it was Keith Jackson because I just knew that if I heard that voice, the game mattered. Harrison.
My bad. I was trying to transition back. For me, Dan, the one I have, and it shows my age, but also I've gone back and listened to games where Keith Jackson's on the call. By all means, probably the greatest of all time, in my opinion, on TV play-by-play. But the guy that I look most forward to listening these days is Chris Fowler. And really, I don't know if it's Chris or if it's the combination of Chris and Kirk that I really like. Like, when I hear Fowler and Herbstreit on the call, I'm like, holy crap. Like, this game is everything. It's like what we've waited all Saturday for. Like, putting Georgia aside, after the Georgia game, most people probably go on and watch the Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit game of the week. You just know. It's like Sunday Night Football with Al Michaels, I'm blanking on the other dude's name. The old team that they had. Chris Collinsworth. It's like, okay, this is the game of the week. This is America's game of the week. It's like with Fox back in the day when they had Aikman and blanking on everybody's name. But, that's the thing. It's like those two, to me, are the voice of college football. I haven't listened to many games on the radio. I like Scott Howard, and from the games that I've heard him do, he's great. He's great. By no means would I compare him to Larry Munson, but just Chris Fowler to me right now is kind of the voice of college football. I really like the way he does games, and probably to me, it's more about the combination of those two. I think that pairing is really, really good.
You know who's absolutely phenomenal on the radio? And I know this is blasphemy. Eli Gold. Eli Gold is freaking outstanding, and you have no idea who
You
Eli
talking about
Gold
the
is.
Alabama guy?
Yep, Alabama guy. So he got the job. It's if you don't know the story of Eli Gold, it's fascinating, right? So he was a NASCAR guy. He did NASCAR, and he came to audition. Well, was it NASCAR? Maybe he ended up doing NASCAR. I want to say he was from the north, and it was funny because Larry Munson was from the north too. But like I just remember, like you have to look up the story. But they brought him in, and nobody in Alabama thought he could do it. He replaced a legendary voice. They brought him in. Multiple interviews. He didn't. He even talks about on the thing that he didn't think he'd make it through one season because these people were going to turn on him. But Eli Gold is absolutely phenomenal at what he does, and his story is pretty awesome. So if you ever have a chance to, I want to say there was like a documentary where it was like Voices of the South. I think it was what's the name of that show that was on SEC Network? SEC Storied, I believe is what it's called.
Yes.
I believe that's where I saw the Eli Gold story. So if you have ESPN,
they did like a whole like on most people, like Larry Munson had an episode,
Munson.
or everybody, like all the legendary commentators.
So if you have not had a chance to see that, I would highly recommend it. And again, he's really, really good. And I know it's blaspheming because we're not supposed to like anything Alabama around these parts, but he's really, really good. And you wanted me to transition in here, but you threw out there this question in our private chat here, and let's just go ahead and hit that now. The Bears trading the number one pick. Hit that, Reno. What are your thoughts on the Bears trading that pick? I mean, should they do it? I mean, they can get a king's ransom if they do. And if you do trade up for that number one pick, I'm not saying the Falcons or whatever, just in general, if you're trading up, what are you trading up for that's going to be worth that king's ransom? So go ahead, hit this. We'll hit it while we're in hot topics.
It's tough. It's tough, Dan, because my bias says, I mean, I went back and looked at some of the clips and watched some of the games that Jalen Carter had this year. Tennessee game, one of them, TCU. Just went back and watched Jalen Carter to begin with. And it's like, well, man, how can you pass up on this dude? And for the Bears, it's not passing up on Jalen Carter. It's we can get Jalen Carter later in this draft. We don't need to take him at one. We can go acquire more picks, maybe even more talent, and still get Jalen Carter. So for me, trade the pick, especially if you're dropping down just a few picks, a few slots. I don't think Jalen Carter gets out of the top 5, is my opinion. That's where I project him to be. He may not even get out of the top spot. If the Bears stay at number 1, Jalen Carter's the pick, in my opinion, unless they throw in kind of a curveball and go Will Anderson. But I think Jalen Carter is the pick for them, which is why I kind of believe that they will trade this pick. And for the second part of that question, Dan, it's definitely quarterback. Now, which quarterback? My gut says Bryce Young's the number 1 quarterback off the board. First one. I know Anthony Richardson is shooting up that board. Heck, even C.J. Stroud's going to mention. I really like C.J. Stroud. After watching that Georgia game, C.J. Stroud was impressive to me. Showed some athleticism, something that I think was probably his big question is, what does he look like with his legs? Can he do it? And he did a pretty damn good job against Georgia. Georgia is the benchmark now for a lot of these scouts. And, okay, did you play Georgia? How'd you look against Georgia? C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, both of them passed the Georgia test. You know who didn't pass the Georgia test, Dan? Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. And for that reason, if you're trading up and paying I don't pay a king's. I don't know if I'd pay a king's ransom for Stroud or Bryce Young. It really depends on the situation for me. But Dan, I want you to give your answer, and I got a follow up. I want to ask you. It's kind of a burning question. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Here's my thing. So, if you're the Chicago Bears, you have to make sure that you're sold on Justin Fields. Is that the guy that you want to ride and die with? Because It's not very often that you have an opportunity to get the number 1 overall pick. So you have it right now. Is this a guy that you want to ride and die with? Because if it is, then you need to surround him with as many possible weapons as you possibly can. So trading out of that number 1 pick makes a lot of sense because you're going to get a lot back in return. However, if you don't think that Justin Fields is the answer long term at quarterback, then this is an opportunity for you to get your quarterback, unless you really don't like one. At the end of the day, when you said Harris, when we talked about what would you be trading up for if you're going to give up what it's going to take to move to number 1, the only right answer is quarterback, because a quarterback don't usually have an opportunity to get the best one available in the draft. If you're going to move all on and get what it's take to get there, you go. Now, is that the right answer? I don't think so. We're not saying that any good. Saying that one of them might be the best ever to play the game. I'm just saying on the surface, I don't think that any of them warrant what it's going to take to move up to number 1. Player like Jalen Carter makes a lot of sense. Actually, they were able to could definitely use something like that. But it would take to move that far. It's almost those things at the end about yourself really don't make a lot of damn sense now, do they, Atlanta Falcons? Because now you'd have to move from 8 to number 1 to get to number 1. If you would have just lost the bullshit games that you won at the end of the season, you'd be picking number 2 or number 3 anyway.
So Dan,
God, the Falcons pissed me off.
You transition into the part that I wanted to ask you the question. Kind of gave it a great transition here. You have control of the Atlanta Falcons, Dan. Play into my fantasy world real quick, okay? You're in control of the Atlanta Falcons. You're Terry Fault now. With the roster you have currently constructed, Dan, would you move to number 1?
Hell no. Absolutely not. No way, shape, or form do I move up to number 1. What it would take, the draft capital, everything. No, there's no way. There's not a player at the front end. I mean, listen, I love Jalen Carter. You know that. Everybody knows that. I love Jalen Carter. Would I love to have him on this roster? Absolutely. I would love to have him on this roster. But there's no way you can move up to number 1 and give up everything it's going to take. There's just no chance that I would do it. Actually, if I'm the Falcons, I would even consider moving back a couple spots, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think moving back makes a lot of sense. It just depends on what they're looking for. Now, like Dan said, quarterback is the only position you're trading up for to number 1. There's not an offensive tackle on the board that everyone's consistently saying, yeah, go get him. Franchise, Hall of Famer, we're going to move up to number 1, go get him. Really, not a defensive player in this draft that you can say, yeah, trade up to number 1 to go get him. I know some people would say Will Anderson. Some people would say Jalen Carter. But to me, the only positions you move up all the way to the board to, as Dan said, is quarterback. Dan, rant of the week, my friend. 2-pronged approach here. I'm going to let you take it away.
All right, so the first part of my rant is going to be kind of a soft rant because I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but it's kind of like a warning rant. And so my warning rant would be, this is the time of year that every single person who covers sports is looking for, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh gosh, my brain just went blank.
Content.
I apologize. Content. Yes, everyone is looking for content at this time of the year. So they're going to be reaching out and looking and scratching and trying to find something that nobody else has had. So my warning shot across the bow would be, please pay attention to who you are listening to. Is this a credible source? Is this somebody who has a great track record of being right? Is this somebody who is more concerned about being right than they are concerned about being first? That was one of the first things that drew me into a guy like Brooks Austin, where does he always have the information before everybody else? He may actually have it, but he doesn't necessarily put it out there first because he wants to make sure it's right. He's more concerned about being right every single time than he is about being first every single time. So when information comes from Brooks, I usually run with it because to me, I trust that source. Like Jonathan, Jeremiah, guys that we talk to, like sometimes we'll shoot each other stuff and be like, hey, have you guys heard this? Or have you seen this anywhere else? And, occasionally as Dan, you're stupid and you're old. And that's a bogus report. And thank you for my friends for telling me that I'm stupid sometimes because I don't want to put out information that's wrong. Or sometimes I'll retweet stuff that I know is wrong because I just think it's hilarious. All the stuff that listen, some of these Alabama trolls are actually kind of funny, and some of the stuff that they put out there and the way that Georgia people react to it is absolutely hilarious. So I will retweet some of that from time to time because I think it's hilarious. But my whole point is just be careful. We're at that time of year where a lot of fake news is going to come out. So pay attention to what you're reading, pay attention to who's saying it. And, I would say before I run out there and make a big scene, I would cross reference it with your friends and make sure that they've seen it too. Because, like in my case, Harrison, Jonathan, Jeremiah, they will never miss an opportunity to tell me I'm an idiot. They love it. It's their favorite sport is telling me I'm stupid or old. Jeremiah loves telling me I'm old. Anyway, my real rant of the week is
second oldest guy in the group too.
I know,
Not even
right?
the youngest one. Second oldest guy in the group. What a guy.
I found out this week that he is way younger than I thought he was. I thought he was like 30. He's like, dude, I'm 25. I'm like, holy shit. All right. I really feel old. All right. So my real rant of the week is I umpired baseball. And, one of the things that I actually loved baseball as the sport, but somebody tried to talk me into umpiring it, and I had no interest in umpiring it. I didn't want to do it. I thought it was stupid, but then he told me how much money you can make doing it on the side. So I started doing like rec games and stuff like that. And one of the a lot of the people would come up to me like, you know what, you're actually kind of good at this, and maybe you should go to school for it. And I was like, go to school for umpiring? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. You go down to Daytona and go take classes with Hunter Wendelstedt and Harry. Well, actually, the year that I went was the year that Harry Wendelstedt passed away. So I got to see him. He told an absolutely hilarious joke. I can't tell it on the podcast, but it was a great joke. But so I went to umpire school, became an umpire. And, one of the things about being an umpire is you have to learn every rule. You have to, like in minor league baseball, if you lose a protest because you got a rule wrong, you're fired. You're gone. So you can't get a rule wrong. You just can't. You have to know it. And that is one of the things that all the umpires take a lot of pride in is that they know every rule. And then once you get into baseball, how you progress is how you apply the rules and handling situations, right? Like there are guys who know the rule book forward and backwards, but they can't apply it on the field because they're book nerds, and they just know the rules, but they can't apply them. And then there's also handling situations where there's an old saying in baseball, don't grab the shitty end of the stick. And if you need that explanation, I'm sorry, I can't help you with it. Just think it through. Don't grab the shit end of the stick. So, you try to avoid trouble. Every umpire that I've ever been around, all the crew chiefs that I've worked with, all of the guys who are working in the Major League Baseball now, one of the things across the board, it's you did a great job as an umpire if you can leave the game and nobody knows you worked it. If, you go home and you're like, who the hell's the home plate umpire tonight? You did a great job. If you don't know who I am and you don't know my name, then I've done my job, because that is the job of an umpire or any official in any sport, is to make sure that the game is adjudicated properly. It runs smoothly. Your goal is to run that game as smooth as possible with as limited interruptions as possible to get to a satisfying conclusion where both teams had every opportunity to be successful. Right? That's what you want. The reason I say all of that is to get to what is happening in Major League Baseball right now. These rules and all this nonsense is being put in place by people who don't give a shit about baseball. And moreover, they don't give a shit about the umpires. The amount of stuff that they have to handle is a lot. And I know almost everybody listening to this podcast hates umpires and officials in general. So I get it. But at the end, almost all of them, almost 99.9% of them want to do a great job. They don't want to get something wrong. And I promise you, as an umpire, when you get something wrong, it haunts you. You can't sleep at night because you know you got it wrong. And there was a play that I made at second base in a minor league. We didn't have the ability to replay things when I was in minor league baseball, and I butchered a play at second base. And I'll be honest with you, I got sent home after I made that play. I got sent home because it was that bad, and it ate at me, and I was nervous to get back on the field. When I finally got back on the field, I was scared to make a mistake. I knew I had no room for error. I mean, this is like the fourth game I ever worked in minor league baseball, and like I got sent home after it because it was that bad. But like because I over applied a rule, right? Like I just did. So now we're asking these umpires to do something that's not even in the rules. Like you're just making up shit and be like, hey, listen, we need you to enforce it. What happened at the end of the Braves game? Let me explain what happened there. So the batter's called out because he's not ready to face it, 8 seconds, whatever. But more importantly than that, that umpire was told we have to make an example out of somebody. We have to make a big deal out of this. And that's exactly what happened. It was a 6-6 game, bases loaded. Borderline. I mean, could it have been let go? Who knows? It's a point of emphasis. If you've ever watched a basketball game, especially a college basketball game, they will tell you there are things that are points of emphasis. That means the officials are going to be focused on these specific things. Why? Because their bosses who sign their paycheck, who make sure that they have a job, are the ones who are telling them this is a point of emphasis. If this happens, I want it called immediately. When I got into minor league baseball, the very first thing they said they wanted called was a high strike. They wanted to go back to the high strike because the strike zone is the center point between the middle of your basically your titty and your belt, the midpoint, which is about the belly button, right? But for whatever reason in baseball, it's from the belt to the knees is what's being called. So they wanted to elevate it back up above the stomach, and you had got grown-ass men wanting to fight you for calling that a strike because for years and years and years that has not been called a strike. So how do you get them to understand? You have to overemphasize and call freaking everything up there and get yelled at and screamed at. The fans, everybody in the stadium boos at your ass. So it's a point of emphasis. You're putting the umpires in a really, really bad situation. It's complete horseshit. The replay, same deal. Go ahead and get your robo umps. I am so glad I'm not working in baseball right now because I would not want to work in these conditions. Said a lot, Harrison. You wanted it. I hope I hit on some things you wanted.
Definitely did, and I was waiting for Dan because I hadn't seen Dan's take on it. I know I probably missed a few retweets. I don't know if Dan's put on his Twitter. Maybe I've missed it about his take on all of it. But the ending of that Braves game was wild. But I'm ready. I'm ready to get into the season, Dan. I don't know if I really like the rule changes. I mean, okay, pitch clock, that can take some getting used to. Not as much dilly-dally. Okay, makes sense. But no shifts. Well, ban his own defense.
I'm okay. I'm okay with the no shifts. I mean, it has nothing to do with nothing. That's fine. Like that's just play. I mean, when we were little kids, we didn't shift the entire field. I mean, I don't have a problem with the no shift. I have a problem with these fake ass rules about this. The shot clock basically. And oh boy, here he comes, the doctor. What's up, Stott?
What up, Stott? This isn't Stoddard. This is Dr. Joel here.
I meant to say guy, but I fucked up.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Maybe I misheard you. What's going on, Dan? How are y'all?
Oh, are you going to talk about this umpires?
Not umpires. Not what I will talk umpires. I'll talk baseball. You know, I'm happy to talk anything and everything. I think it's fugazi what they're trying to do, but you know,
listen, we are the fan friendly show. Okay, so like you go on the Jonathan Jeremiah show, you can put your question. They don't like you don't exist to them. We are the fan friendly show. You have a take, you have something to say, you come on our show. Jonathan, what do you got?
Look, so I was actually at a Beef O'Brady's for the first time in my life. Shouts out to 3-year Letterman. First time in my life at a Beef O'Brady's watching this baseball game. And I'm sitting there in the 9th inning, and the Braves are making this comeback, down 3 runs in the 9th inning, and they get some runs and they tie the game up, bases loaded, 3-2 count. And so I can't hear the volume on the TV that I'm watching at because obviously I'm at a sports bar. They don't have the volume on. And I just see the batter walking to first. I was like, oh, the pitcher screwed up. He got caught for the pitcher's clock. And then they just call the game, and I was like, what the heck just happened? And I was like, how in the world do you call the batter out in that situation? I was trying to find a replay, anything and everything. And my whole thing about it is, one, the catcher himself was standing up, which I get, that's not part of the rule, whatever. You can play that to your advantage and whatnot. But two, the batter had both feet in the batter's box, was staring directly at the pitcher, and of all things pointed towards, he was ready for the incoming pitch. He was ready for his at bat, and was basically just waiting to put his bat on his shoulder. So I just think if this is what it's going to be, if this is going to be like the whole thing of like, well, what is a catch in the NFL? What is a catch in college football? Nobody really knows. If this is what it's going to transpire to, then there's going to be a lot of unhappy fans. There's going to be a lot of games that are decided, unfortunately, and hopefully not too many. But it just thinks in crucial moments like that, again, it's kind of like the Super Bowl. We hated that the holding call kind of ended up being the deciding factor in that football game. I hate to see that the deciding factor in that baseball game was some umpire determining whether or not a batter was ready.
Well,
it seems like we're going to be used to it.
Yeah, the other thing too is, one of the main comments is like this, like you took what happened in a spring training game and parlayed that somehow all the way to that better not happen in Game 7 of the World Series. Well, no shit, it's not going to happen in Game 7 of the World Series, because that's why they're making such a big deal about it now, is so that it gets in these guys' heads. You're conditioning. It's like Pavlov's dog, where you ring the bell. You're going to start conditioning them, right? You're going to be kind of hard about it, and then you kind of loosen up. It's like with a parenting style. They say it's a lot easier to start out really, really strict and then loosen up as they get older, as opposed to being willy-nilly at the beginning and then trying to be strict when they get older. It's really tough to do that. So I think, like you said, Jonathan, there is a lot here of gray space. And I think that as these guys get conditioned, it's going to be less of a shock to the system. I just think it's stupid, and I don't think we need it.
With that being said, Dan, John, let's get into it. Let's go. It's football. Not football season. Sadly, it's not football season. Well, it's almost spring football season. So there was breaking news this afternoon. Georgia's fans kind of got back into the frenzy of, oh my God, we're going to lose a coach. Oh my God, to the NFL. And hey, thank you to Chris Lowe over at ESPN, broke the story Monday afternoon, which is today. Georgia co-defensive coordinator Glenn Schumann is staying in Athens, who reportedly interviewed with the Eagles for their defensive coordinator opening. Big win on all sides. I didn't think he was going to leave. I don't think Dan thought he was going to leave. Jonathan didn't think he was going to leave. Not many thought he was going to leave, but there is the panic fans out there that, interview is, yeah, he's out the door. So what does this mean? What does it mean for Georgia? Obviously, there's going to be a lot of pluses in this, not as many negatives. So let's kick it over real quick to John and then Dan.
Well, I think first off, what it means is I think the panic kind of started because not many people thought Monken was off to the NFL, and then he takes a job with Baltimore. Then you have freaking Robert Muschamp taking a quality and controlled defensive position with the Los Angeles Chargers after being a defensive analyst for a couple of years at Georgia. And so then when you hear Schumann and the rumblings of him possibly going to the NFL, then yeah, the panic button's going to get hit. But as far as what it means for him to return and what it means for Georgia, well, you know me, I'm the stat guy, so I'm going to rattle off a bunch of stats for you here real quick. So in 2022, Georgia's point differential was plus 402, so you get that back. Glenn Schumann had a big helping hand in that. That's 35 more points, actually, than the total number of points allowed by Georgia's defense over the last 2 seasons. So, again, 402 point differential, and that's 35 points less than the total number of points Georgia's allowed over the last 2 years. It also means that you get the guy back that helped lead your defense that only allowed an average of 17.1 points per game against 7 ranked opponents in 2022. And he's also had 5 inside linebackers drafted since he came on board with Kirby Smart. And he's also had 2 Butkus Award winners in those same years as well. The program didn't have a single one prior to his arrival. So that's exactly what you get back in Glenn Schumann. You get a really good defensive-minded head coach. You get a guy that knows how Georgia operates, and you get a guy that has experience and is doing really good things on the recruiting trail. He's getting elite bodies in that room, and he develops at a high pace. He just does everything really, really well, and people are taking notice of that, and that's why he's getting phone calls from the NFL, because when Georgia's having this much success, defensively specifically, who are they going to call? They're going to call the guy that's supposedly the defensive coordinator for that team, and they want him on board. What the frick are you guys doing down there at Georgia? What can we get from that? Teach us your ways, because obviously it's freaking working for y'all, because you guys won back-to-back national titles.
I thought Brooks on his NBR show really summed this up well. Like a lot of guys that are as talented as Schumann, you don't necessarily get the job in your first interview, but he's starting to lay the groundwork that maybe he is ready for that next role. My question with Schumann is, does he want to continue to be in college or does he want to be in the NFL? I'm not really sure which direction he wants to go. Life is a lot better in the NFL. I mean, it's more difficult to win in the NFL, but life itself is better at the NFL level. Which way does he want to go? I think it would be a shame if Schumann went to the NFL because he has such a talent of building relationships and being able to recruit. He is an elite recruiter. I hear your stats, Jonathan, and I agree with you 99.9% of what you said. However, the one thing that I would say is that I don't have any issue with Georgia trying to replace the mind that is Glenn Schumann. I think the biggest challenge for Georgia would be replacing the man that is Glenn Schumann and his ability to bring in top-level players. I think that's the one part of Glenn Schumann that I don't think we could replace. And I'm not saying that we couldn't find somebody who could do a really good job because Kirby has shown over and over and over again that he is able to do a great job of finding people. But Glenn Schumann's real talent, obviously very smart defensively, but we have a lot of smart defensive minds in that room. His greatest talent and greatest asset to Georgia is his ability to secure talent for this program. And I think that's the one thing that we would really miss. And I think that would be a shame if college football missed out on that with him. Listen, I'm not really sure that a DC job at another college makes a whole lot of sense for somebody like him. He's basically at the pinnacle of that right now. So maybe it is the NFL opportunity for him that would eventually pull him away other than a head coaching job. And I don't really know if he's ready for that yet or if he thinks he's ready for that, but who knows?
Yeah. And you kind of already got out of the woods with the Alabama situation. I know really, there was no buzz other than, hey, we're going to fire Pete Golding. Alabama fans are in the mentions saying, oh, yeah, let's go get Glenn Schumann. Let's go get Glenn Schumann. Let's go take the prized possession of those Georgia fans. Well, outside of that, after it was done, it's like, it is so quiet in here, you can hear a pin drop. And they go out there and hire Kevin Steele, which, as we talked about, not a bad hire. I mean, dude's a vet. Dude is a veteran. And, hey, my worst take of the last year was that Miami hired a really damn good football staff. Maybe they did. They had a lot of big names on it, but they obviously failed because some of them are gone. Most of them are gone. I mean, already out after year one. So brings me to the kind of the next question is Georgia out of the woods? It is February 27th. I mean, most NFL staffs are filled out. Most college staffs are filled out.
So are you just asking for this year? Are they out of the woods for this year?
I think yes. I think for this year.
Yeah, for this year, then yeah, Georgia, they're out of the woods for now with Glenn Schumann in regards to potentially him going to the NFL or not. I think definitely because one, spring practice is about to ramp up for college teams, Georgia specifically, and every other team in the country. So that's about to happen. Recruiting's about to ramp up again a lot. Guys like this past weekend, a lot of coaches were taking their last bit of vacation or vacation, as you so call it, before the season for 2023 starts right back up for them, because that schedule is so brutal for them. So I think if anything, yeah, this was probably your last shot, or really this was your last opportunity. If Glenn Schumann were to make a move this year, then that was going to be the only opportunity or really the only chance that you had to worry about him leaving. I think now that where you are now in the season and what's about to happen and what's right around the corner, then what Georgia's staff is right now, that's what you're going to get in 2023, if I had to guess.
And if you look at the guys on the staff that have the potential to make a move, you're talking about staffers, right? Like guys that we really don't know their name. They may be extremely effective inside the program, but like nobody's going to lose sleep over them moving. You're talking about guys who are going to take coordinator jobs or head coaches jobs. I think that ship has sailed for this offseason. Is there a chance that we could lose some staffers between now and by the time we kick off for the season? Absolutely. I think that could happen. I'm not saying it will, but I'm saying it could. But, like guys like Todd Hartley, they're not going anywhere now. They're kind of locked in. Because what would be next for Todd Hartley? Obviously, an offensive coordinator job, if that's something that he wanted to do, or maybe go be a tight ends coach in the NFL level. But again, Todd Hartley, I don't know how great he is X's and O's wise. I know he's extremely talented at landing and procuring talent. So I think we're okay for right now. Morgan, always with the Go Dogs.
We finally got to go Dogs.
From Morgan!
Yeah, shout
Morgan's
out
always good for a go
the
dog.
Mr. and Mrs. Shout out to y'all, and shout out to Dean, man.
Number
Happy to get
one
him in
roommate
here.
in the business.
Number one roommate. Yeah. So my whole point is, I think all of the big names, the names that most Georgia fans would care about, I think are locked in for the season, which is great news. I for one hated losing Monken, but I mean I think we're going to be okay. I know.
Yeah, I great points, Dan. I wrote down. I have a pen, notebook and pen beside me because we talked about clipping stuff. So I wrote down Dan's timestamp for that quote about what Georgia loses. So with that being said, let's open it up for kind of spring practice talk before we let J-Man and Dan Kiley out of here for the night, guys. Here, I'm putting you on the spot. Let's go ahead and get it in. Let's go ahead and get this in, and then we can touch on the combine just real quick. Breakout players. Do we got them? Who wants first?
Breakout players for the spring.
You can name one. You can name two.
Gosh, name one. I've been on the Yazid hype train ever since he signed with Georgia. Ever since I saw those highlights, and I'm talking about the wide receiver from the 2023 class. He'll be a true freshman this year, but ever since I had to write up the recruiting profile for Yazid, and I went over to his Twitter and I found the highlight clips of him, I was sign me up. I'm a Yazid Haynes through and through fan, or at least I am hoping that he succeeds, and I think he will. That dude's a burner, runs I think he's been clocked in at like a 4.3, so for a 40-yard time. So definitely a big Yazid guy for this upcoming class, and I think that he's someone you're going to hear a lot of positive things about come springtime because, everybody wants to know, of course, about how the starters are doing, maybe how people have developed, how like Malachi Starks is coming along after his freshman year and whatnot. But everybody also loves to know, how are these true freshmen doing in spring camp? How are these early enrollees doing? How are they transitioning from high school to college? I think he's going to be one that you're going to hear a lot of good stuff about, and he's going to be a name to know for a good long time. So if for just one right now, yeah, he's my guy for sure.
I mean, for me, it's AJ Harris. That's the guy that I've kind of circled. I know I've said it on a couple different shows now where I think that's the guy who I think has an incredibly high ceiling. I think it's a position that Georgia needs to see instant productivity out of. I know Jonathan Jeremiah did the cornerback position, defensive backs. This past show that they did a phenomenal job. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. I think they covered it really well. I think AJ Harris fits into that group really, really well. I think he's going to get some time there. And I like the Yazid thing because Georgia needs another explosive wide receiver. If he could be that guy, that would be phenomenal. I can't remember what his name is, and I'm spacing out. We have a freshman wide receiver that's like 6'4", and
Tyler Williams,
maybe.
Bingo.
Yeah, sprinter speed. That guy has a chance to announce his presence with authority. So that's another one. But I'm going AJ Harris. Go ahead, Harrison.
Y'all went freshman, and it's interesting because I didn't tell y'all to go freshman. So that makes me feel good. Georgia has two freshmen that y'all both feel certainly high on that it can perform. I'm going to go with a sophomore. And, okay, it's hard to say. I'm gonna go on the limb and say he's a breakout player this year. I'd classify him as a breakout player because he really didn't get too much action. The breakout player from last year was Michael Williams when Georgia has another 5-star sitting on the edge. I think Marvin Jones is going to be this year's breakout player in the spring. Georgia needs help off the edge. You lose I believe Nolan played Jack or Sam. I forget. I get the two mixed up. Jonathan, maybe you can clear me up on that. They lost their Jack and their Sam linebackers and Robert Beal and Nolan Smith. Georgia needs help at both those places. Chaz Chambliss can try to step in. Marvin Jones is going to get hopefully a full spring of work and off the edge again, along with Michael Williams, who I think probably playing a little bit more 3-tech than he will, or 3-tech and 4-eye than he will off the edge. But, I mean, the possibilities are endless. We have to see a big spring out of Marvin Jones.
Now, Harrison, that's a great pick. Marvin Jones is a stud, but he's going to be out for the entire spring with an injury.
I knew that was coming.
I'm sorry, but great pick. I think he's definitely someone that when fall rolls around, I think he's definitely has breakout potential. He showed flashes in the Tennessee game, I remember, and all the other games that he showed out in. But yeah, for spring, that's a miss already. Sorry. So that's an X on the score chart.
Oh, hey, don't worry, Harrison. They got me on the same one. They were doing their edge position, and I was like, you guys have not said Marvin Jones Jr. not one time. And they're like, Dan, because he's not going to be in the spring. I was like, oh, shit. So, listen, they got me too. Jonathan is here to bust your chops, always.
I'm just trying to lay down the facts, do my job, do my journalistic duty, whatever you want to call it.
No, you did a great job. Thank you so much.
Dang. So okay. Bear Alexander, my next one. Boom. We'll pivot.
There you go.
We'll pivot.
There you
Bear
go.
Alexander.
There you go.
I know he's in there. We didn't see him last spring. He's going to get a full spring, full offseason. Hopefully nobody gets hurt. I can't wait to see Bear Alexander. And Robert from the GG podcast, he is in here. I'd bet you he's yelling from the rooftops.
Let me say it.
Jamal Jarrett.
Oh, damn it.
Jamal Jarrett.
Big jaw.
Robert and Jamal Jarrett go together like peanut butter and jelly.
You got that right.
Guys, all right. Ooh. It's Combine Week. Gosh, that came up quickly. It's Combine Week in the NFL. Real quick, to close out the show, Georgia has, I believe it's 12 people. J-Will, you're the stat guy. I believe it's 12 people.
12 invites.
Okay, 12 people. Dan, hey, I might have got Marvin Jones wrong, but at least I got that one right, okay? I'm trying to redeem myself here. It was a rough show last week. I got caught going off script, and I was not happy with it. But with that being moving on. NFL Combine, Jalen Carter is not going to work out. That's probably, I mean, really, it just shows you, hey, he's probably going to go high in this draft. There's no need at all. Same thing with Bryce Young. He's not going to throw. No need at all. Out of everyone who's competing, guys, I want to get your people, the one player you are intrigued to watch. And I have so much money on this pick. If it's not Stetson Bennett, I'm going to lose my future mortgage.
Yeah,
Somebody's picking Stetson Bennett.
Well, it ain't me, so you might be losing your mortgage. If you're not saying you're not interested in seeing Broderick Jones test out at the NFL Combine, then you need to know now. That's going to be a freak show. It's going to be absolutely ridiculous. If you've listened to Real Talk Pod with Tate and Ryland over there, two Georgia players or one former Georgia player now, there was an episode where they talked about Broderick Jones, and Tate just kind of gives this look of like, that is the most freakiest human being I've ever seen. That dude's ridiculous for his size. And like, he's just, I would go ahead and tell you, he's going to test out of this world. He's going to lock himself in as a top 10 pick for sure. Kiley Ringo's obviously another one that's going to test really well. Just another physical specimen. That's just, he's a 1%er in a lot of areas. Speed wise, he's going to test really well. There's already been rumblings about that. I think there's quite a few Georgia players that are going to test really well. You know, last year they kind of took over the NFL Combine, and it's because I think Georgia not only does a great job of helping them condition for that and getting them prepared for the NFL Combine, but Georgia just also finds a way to get those different breed human beings on campus in a Georgia uniform, and then they get to develop them for 3 or 4 years. And by the time the NFL rolls around, it's like, holy crap, these guys are NFL ready, more NFL ready than anybody else. So all 12 guys I think are worth watching. But yeah, Broderick Jones is the one that I'm specifically highlighting for sure.
That's a great pick, Jonathan. I love it, but not so fast, my friend. The guy I want to see is none other than the Big O, Darnell Washington. You have a man that size. And once you go to the Combine, all the myth busting is done. Like, they're going to put you on a scale. They're going to tell you down to the gram what you freaking weigh. They're going to put you up on a chart, and they are going to tell you to the millimeter what your height is. If that man clocks in at 6'7", like everybody says he is, and he goes out there and runs like a 4.5 or a 4.6, holy hell. That guy is a physical freak. He showed us this year he can catch the football. We already knew for 2 years that he could knock the piss out of you. Now, if he can run, so you have a guy that height who can run that fast, catch that well, and block like tractor trailer. I mean, what can't you do with that guy? He's going to make every other player on that offensive line better. He's going to make everybody outside of him better. I go ahead. I know. Listen, I'm fanboying.
The only thing I love that you're talking about Darnell Washington, because this has always been my favorite, like, kind of, I guess, fun fact you can call it about Darnell Washington, is that he's such a freak and such an anomaly that if you were to load up NCAA 14 on your Xbox 360, you could not create a Darnell Washington. It does not allow you to create a player that big at the tight end position. You cannot create a 6'7", 270-pound tight end in a video game. In a video game, you cannot make him. Nonetheless, that they exist in real life. That's how much of an anomaly, or a unicorn, as I say nowadays, that he is. And yeah, that's another good pick, Dan, for sure.
Yeah, he is a special human. And I mean, you said a lot of good stuff. Like Kiley Ringo, I think, is going to test out of this world. I really do want to see what McIntosh puts down on paper. I think McIntosh, he's been one of my favorite backs to come through Georgia in quite a while. I mean, outside of Chubb, but out of the backs that we have right now, I have an affinity for McIntosh. I'm not really sure what it is. Maybe it's that South Miami thing. because some Willis McGahee to him. I'm not really 100% sure, but I love McIntosh, and I think the NFL scouts are going to fall in love with him, and he might be that next back to go to the NFL and put up some really, really good numbers. So I think it's a very productive time for him. I don't give a shit what Stetson does at Combine, just to be completely honest. I really don't. I'm so fatigued on talking about him that I just don't give a shit anymore.
For me, McIntosh is definitely someone I think, whenever someone talks about McIntosh, it's the thing that I constantly hear is I don't know what he's going to run. And it sounds similar to Zamir White, George Pickens, Lewis Cine. It's like, what is he going to run? I really do think he has some underrated speed. I think he's probably going to blow it out of the water, going to turn a lot of people's eyes like, holy crap, he ran that fast? Now, no doubt, out of everybody in this running back class, probably Jahmyr Gibbs is going to win it with the fastest 40 time out of the ones that are going to be drafted within the first 3 rounds. That's probably not going to be a surprise to anybody. So I'm curious, like Dan said, to watch Kenny McIntosh. But hey, I'm going to recover some of my future mortgage. I want to see what that man Stetson Bennett runs. I really do. Because people are here saying that he's going to run in the 4.5s. Let me see it.
It's going to happen.
I mean, let me see it. If he runs that fast,
I think he's going to hit 4.4.
Oh, dang. Whew. Dude. It's 4.4. Oh, Lord.
I bet you he hits like 4.49. That's what I'm going to go with.
If he hits the 4s, Dan, the 4s, I'm going to have to see this clip on my feed every damn day of the week because that is crazy. Whew. If he hits that, Dan, I'm going to need a victory lap out of you.
He's faster than you think he is because if you go back and watch the film, there are a couple different times where he makes angles disappear. And if you understand angles, when you make an angle disappear, that is top speed. And a lot of quarterbacks don't make angles disappear.
Well, I mean, you could just see it when he would escape from the pocket. Like for him to evade a lot of those guys and a lot of those linebackers that he did, like that testifies to you got to have a lot of speed to evade like SEC linebackers and even SEC edge rushers because even those dudes are booking it now. Yeah, it takes some serious and even specifically. Yeah, and like especially his breakaway run against Auburn, like when he took it like 70 yards or whatever he did, like that shows to the type of speed that he has. That's the definition of Amazon Express delivery right there. That's what that is.
I've not heard that one. Coin phrase that one.
There you go.
For him, he's gonna have to throw, and that's kind of like the big thing for him. I don't think people are questioning his athleticism. It's how does he throw the football? Jake Fromm, we talked about it in the group chat. Jake Fromm's ball and Stetson's ball, there's a difference. Stetson throws a better football than Jake Fromm did. And I think that's probably where Jake Fromm's and also the slow kind of killed.
You can't bring Jake Fromm up. That guy was I mean, listen, I'm not trying to slander Georgia quarterbacks, but just you can't bring up Jake Fromm if you're being serious and have a serious conversation about quarterbacks.
Oh, no. I'm just talking about
I mean, you can say Aaron Murray if you want to. You can compare him to Aaron Murray, and I think that's a great comp. I think Stetson throws the ball better than Aaron Murray, although I thought forever and ever amen that Aaron Murray was the best Georgia quarterback while he was at Georgia. But, Stetson can throw the piss out the ball. He'll be fine.
And that's what I want to see him throw because we've seen him throw in games. It looks great. There's that clip that Jonathan retweeted or tweeted from last year's Manning camp, and it's a deep ball. It's a beautiful deep ball. And I'm like, damn. So I'm excited to watch him throw because he's going to be throwing with Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. Those two are already getting mentioned as, hey, they're going to throw the piss out of the football and they're going to look really good. And, I mean, for me, that's another part of the reason. There's nothing to gain for Bryce Young to go out there and throw. There's nothing to gain when he's throwing against Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. He's going to be a number 1 pick potentially. So I'm really keen to see Stetson Bennett throw. Another guy, real quick, Dan, is I want to see Nolan Smith. I don't know if he's working out. I haven't seen anything that tells me otherwise. But if he runs as fast as I think he will, I think he's right now, if I had to predict, I think he's going to be the guy that slips into the first round, maybe alongside Chris Smith. Those two guys, if they run fast 40s and they have a good combine and good pro day, they will fly up those boards.
Well, I have a question for you guys. All right, so I heard this on the radio the other day, and it really got me thinking, right? So they posed a question like this, and I want you to answer it before I tell you why. In any game that Stetson played in the last 2 years, did you ever say, I wish he was faster? I wish he could throw it farther? Was there anything athletically that you that got you upset about Stetson Bennett? Is there anything in the last 2 years athletically that you were like, I wish he was this, I wish he was that, I wish he was that? Did that cross your mind?
The last 2 years,
Yeah.
no.
No.
Like the last, definitely not. I think the last time that you could really even say that about him would have to be the 2020 Kentucky game. That's the last one that comes to mind where like I truly sat there watching and it was like, I don't know if this kid has it. He's making some pretty ill-advised decisions and whatnot. Just didn't look all there. 2021, he turned a new chapter. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened in the offseason. I don't know what anybody told him. I don't know what he did or whatnot. But 2021 Stetson Bennett and 2020 Stetson Bennett are night and day. That's how different it was. And from that point on, from UAB all the way to the national championship game against TCU, that was a different quarterback. That was a different Stetson Bennett. And it's why it's the legend of Georgia football now. So I would say no. I cannot remember a single time in the last 2 years where I was like, I wish Stetson Bennett did this better, really.
Perfect.
It's tough. I agree with J-Will. I can't think of anything where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not wishing for anything athletically or throwing wise. I don't think I can. But I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be straight up honest with y'all. Heading into the Michigan game and even the Alabama extent, my main question was, can he do it? Is he good enough to go beat Alabama?
That's a good point.
Even after the Michigan game, where he blew it out of the water, I'm like, can he do it? Like, Georgia has the defense. Georgia, you think they have the pieces around them, but is Stetson Bennett the guy? Because everything else leading up to that, before the SEC championship game, it's like, oh yeah, Georgia's probably going to run through Alabama. Then that shock of the SEC championship game comes, and it's like, holy crap, we just went back a year.
So I brought that up because Chuck Oliver was the one talking about it, and he said that you're about to turn the page at University of Georgia to two guys that if you went into a lab and drew them up, they are prototypical level A, 5-star, prime quarterbacks. But there's not that excitement that you thought you would have by giving it over to them, because at no point, and you just said it yourselves, and that's why I wanted you to answer before we talked about moving on to a new quarterback, is you didn't say, I wish he was taller. You didn't say, I wish he could throw it farther. You didn't say, I wish he was a little bit faster. You didn't say any of those things. So we're turning the page to something that we all wanted. We all wanted this 2 years ago. Now we are finally there, but nothing that we want. I mean, like, it was irrelevant. It really was. And so, like, I don't know. I don't really know what the punchline of this joke is, but we're getting ready to turn it over to two guys that we've all been wishing for, but the guy that we're replacing didn't have any shortcomings in the areas that they're supposedly be better at. So I don't know, man. I think this is going to be a real eye opener for us this year. I think we kind of took Stetson for granted a lot.
I think that's a great point. And I mean, the haters won't admit it. God forbid if I log on to a Facebook group and see the number one hater saying I was wrong. Gosh, the world must be coming to an end that day. But yes, the doctor came in for a visit on the Top podcast. You got that right, Reeds.
Got to check in on my patients.
Yeah, you got to check in on us. Stoddard went to Charlotte on a business trip. We said, "Yo, can we get the doctor one-on-one? Can the doctor see us now?" So we did it. We'll pull it off. And hey, when Stoddard's done traveling, we'll try and get him on too, because can't have one half without the other half of the Class 6 podcast. But with that being said, Jonathan, wrap us up. Where can I find you?
Where can you find me? You can find me on Twitter at Dr_Jwill. I haven't been posting too many stat tweets as of late, but I put content out over there. I think it's pretty good content. And then you can also find me with the Classic City Sports podcast. As Harrison just mentioned, me and Jeremiah Stoddard, we do our own Georgia football sports podcast every single Wednesday, or it's typically on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. So that's where I'm at. Twitter and YouTube. That's where you can find me. That's where I'm available. And then I also write articles for Dogs Daily at Sports Illustrated over there. So you can find my content over there as well. Pretty much every single day, there's something over there for you to read. Sit on the toilet and read some articles if you want to. If that's your type of thing, then I'm there for you and I'm your guy. So that's where you can find me.
Yeah, we love having Jonathan on. Jonathan does an absolutely amazing job. I know, like, he's not going to toot his own horn too heavy, but I'm telling you, his articles are really good. You always get good information. His stats always give you great information. You can trust his stats. We talked about there. One of my first half of my rant is trust your information. If it's got Jonathan's name on it, I can promise you he's double crossed and triple checked all that stuff. And
Hey,
Rudy,
other
thank
people
you
want
so
him
much.
too. Like,
Yeah.
that's the ultimate compliment. Other people post his stats. Other people.
Yeah. They
May
do.
not get credit.
Some of your
but-
favorite football players like to post my stats. I'll just leave it at that.
But anyway, you can find me at DanKiley3 on Twitter. Obviously, like, subscribe, follow this. We got to get our numbers up. Jonathan Jeremiah's show has absolutely blown up the last couple of weeks. I'm extremely jealous. They have like tripled their numbers in like 2 weeks, and so good for them. Like honestly and truly, could be
Hey, y'all
happier
just
for you
boosting
guys.
my ego now.
I know. Well, we love you. Appreciate you coming on.
I love y'all boys too. I support. I've always said support those who support you. You guys clearly, as you guys just did, you guys support us and you support me. So I'm always going to support you guys as well. And I love talking sports with you guys. We do it every single day. So why not do it on YouTube?
Right. Hey, and don't forget our 4 Wide podcast.
Absolutely. We're ready to get that started back up with some other sports other than NFL. Ready to get that back going for sure.
Hey, Jonathan and I have been dying to talk basketball. It's coming.
We'll see what Stoddard
we're
does.
gonna need it. We're gonna need it. Trey Young's under fire, guys. I'm gonna need something on Saturday, Sunday, or something. Saturdays. I don't know when you're all gonna do it, but you're gonna have to give your response and your takes to that. But with that being said, we've been an hour, and I told Dan we talked about it weeks or months back. We don't want to go above 45 minutes, otherwise people be losing. But I do want to give a shout out to the audience, guys. Thank you for last week. We didn't. I've been looking through the average duration of review. It used to be 7 minutes. That almost doubled last week, up to 15, or actually did double. Went up to 15 out of a 30-minute show. 15 minutes for a show that has 65 subscribers, 61 subscribers. I'm happy with it. So keep watching through the end of the episode. As Morgan said, it was a good episode. Appreciate Morgan, Dean for coming over with the doctor. So with that being said, go find the doctor over on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock over on the Classic City Podcast. Guys, it's going to wrap it up for episode 79 of the Top Podcast. I'm here, Reno. That's Dan Kiley. That's Jonathan Williams.